I have a rule when I read books. Will the contents of the book be long enough to fill an entire manuscript, or would this be something that would be more suited for something along the lines of, say, a magazine article? With today's book, that question was one that, when I originally purchased this back in 2014, I was definitely wondering about. The Hampton Roads Peace Conference was a meeting between Confederates led by the Confederate Vice President with President Lincoln and Seward to attempt to stop the bloodshed of the American Civil War as Grant was pounding away at Petersburg. Sherman was crashing his way through the South, and it was just a matter of time that the Confederacy was doomed to being overwhelmed by the military prowess of the North. Yes, the book does manage to do this, contain a fascinating story, mainly from the Southern perspective, about people trying to come up with explanations, desperate hopes, and yes, ways that the Confederacy would actually manage to live on as a independent or quasi-independent entity, and the Lincoln's administration unwillingness to stomach this or even negotiate on those terms. At the core of this is the question of if there was anything that the two could do as separate entities that would somehow stop the fighting and give them an external enemy. This led, by some Southerners, to the bizarre idea of the Mexican Plan, where the Union and Confederacy would stop shooting at one another and instead would go invade Mexico to uphold the Monroe Doctrine, whereby the United States argued that European powers should stay out of the Americas. How exactly this would work in practice is something that the book really doesn't get into detail about, simply points out that this was ridiculously impractical, even if the North, so close to victory, was going to actually consider the idea. The book does a nice job detailing the biographies of the main individuals involved and laying out what little there actually was to the conference, including General Grant, who received the message from the South, fudging it so that it would be acceptable for Lincoln and Seward to meet with them, since the letter from the South specifically mentions two countries, which naturally the Northerners were unwilling to deal with on those terms. This is a book that concludes its main argument about halfway through and spends the rest of it dealing with the war, how it concluded, the various negotiations that were involved, and the like, as well as, naturally, the biographies of the individuals involved, what happened to them after the war, that sort of thing. Now, typically with books, I consider how often I'm going to reread them if I enjoy them, and I enjoy this one, and according to my records, I've reread it 3 times in the last just over 7 years. So it nicely slots into that every 2-year pattern. As I said, I'm more interested in how the various Southern officials realized, or failed to realize, that they were essentially doomed and there was no chance that their idea of a slave-owning Confederacy was actually going to survive, and how they deluded themselves into the fantasy of the Mexican concept. Disclaimer. Yes, in my spare time, I do run a book publishing company. Yes, we publish military history, but no, nothing on the American Civil War as of yet. If you've enjoyed this review, I have a few others posted. Please subscribe, like, comment, and the rest, you know what to do at this point.